Good morning or good afternoon or good whatever time of day you're watching this. We are starting in chapter 12 now. This is exploring polynomials. And in this section, there are a couple things we're going to use. One is that we're starting on page 561. I will suggest this optional activity lab on page 560. This is just exploring writing expressions. So if you're interested, you can walk through that. That would be a great optional activity for you. And then on page 561, we see in the introduction something called algebra tiles. And this is something we can actually use or make at home. You can draw these, but I would encourage you, especially as we start looking at polynomials, this can be a great visual. So I got some construction paper out and cut it into pieces, just like you can see in the book. If you are interested in that, or you can also cut normal white paper and then color it. So you'll see I have all these little squares, rectangles, smaller squares, and all of the red pieces, so whether the large red box, the small red box, or the rectangle, are negative. You see that in the book. And then the blue box, the large blue box, is a positive, green box is positive, and yellow box is positive. And these represent, let's see if we can look at one of each. They're a little tricky to pick up because they're so small. So this is positive 1x squared. That's the blue box. The green box is positive x. And the little yellow, we only need one, is positive 1. Oh no, it flipped over. Here, we'll write it on the back too. Positive 1. And so the red is negative x squared. Negative x. And here's a little red guy. Negative 1. And so the reason these are helpful, we see the x, it's supposed to be this large box is x by, come on, bud, by x, and so is x squared. And unfortunately, we don't know how many units long x is. We can't say that just because 4 of these little ones fit that it's 4, but we represent with these symbols. So I would encourage you to take a minute just to, if you would like, to pause the video and make some of your own algebra tiles, or if you have something that you could use in its place at home. These are just going to help us as a visual representation. And like I said, you can always draw these in, but I've found that drawing them actually takes more time than just doing one, cut a few of these, and can kind of be a fun little activity to do as you're getting started. So if that's something you're interested in, go ahead and pause, make your algebra tiles, or find something to use as algebra tiles. And then we're going to look at example 1 in this first video. Example 1 on page 161 is going to look at the algebra tiles and writing an expression and then using them to model expressions. So that'll be our example 2, is using them to help us add and subtract. So when I see something like example 1, where I have a red box, 3 green rectangles, and I'm going to have trouble with this because I have to pick them up. There's 1, 2, and 3. And then 4 red ones. Remember those little squares? 1, 2, 3, 4. Each of those represents 1 unit, 1 negative unit. And so we can look at this and we can say, well, how many of each thing are there? Mine aren't very organized, but that's okay. Example 1, we have negative 1x squared. We have an x, and an x, which in total is 3x. And then I have negative 1, negative 1, negative 1. These little guys are hard to write on. Negative 1 and negative 1, which in total is 4 negative 1s. So when I write this, negative 1x squared, or just negative x squared, plus 3x minus 4. Go ahead and pause your video looking at quick check. 1 and 2. I'm sorry, 1a and b. And we'll look at those. Pause your video, try those out, write those expressions, and then we'll look at those together. And voila, I have these up here now. All right, when I look at the first example, I have a blue x squared, so that is 1x squared. I can also write that as just x squared. I have 2 red rectangles, so those are each negative x, so negative 1x is negative 2x. And negatives I can write as minus 2x. Then I have positive 1 and positive 1. Those little tiny yellow boxes each represent 1 unit. And so in total, that is plus 2. Again, I could rewrite that as just x squared instead of 1x squared minus 2x plus 2. And quick check B, I have 2 of these red large boxes. So each one is negative 1x squared. So negative 1x squared plus negative 1x squared is negative 2x squareds. 2 of them are negative. Then I have 2 green rectangles. Each one is a positive x. So I have plus 2 x's. Whoa. And then I have 3 negative 1s, which is minus 3. In our next, we're going to use our algebra tiles in order to help us add or subtract and see what we have as a total.